Hi everyone, it's me. Okay, we're doing our May monthly reading wrap up today. Also, in advance, I don't know what the quality of this video looks like because there's like a tiny screen on my camera, but if this video quality looks absolutely terrible, I apologize in advance because it's a very dark, rainy, gloomy day today, but it's also making the vibes feel kind of cozy. But yeah, my camera doesn't do very well in low light, so if it looks like really grainy and like really bad, I'm sorry. But it is Sunday morning, it's June 2nd, and we're gonna talk about the books that I read in May. So I ended up reading 8 books, and I actually spent the first 2 weeks of May studying the ACOTAR books. And I say studying, not reading, because most of you guys will know if you have been watching my vlogs for the past few weeks. I went to an ACOTAR trivia event, and I needed to win. My competitive self came out, my competitive side, and I had to win. So I spent literally May 1st to May 13th studying the first 3 ACOTAR books. So I reread ACOTAR, ACOMAF, and ACOWAR. ACOWAR I pretty much read twice in that time frame, and I'm not gonna do like a full review of what I thought about the ACOTAR books because I feel like you don't need to hear that from me again, but I will let you know some of my thoughts on the reread and how my experience was like diving back into these books, starting with ACOTAR. This was never my favorite ACOTAR book, okay? Like, I think you guys all know that. ACOTAR is kind of the intro to the world. You get world building, stories a lot more simple. It really feels like something completely different compared to the rest of the series. Like, it changes so drastically in terms of the story, the style, but I just found rereading ACOTAR so funny. Like, it was a funny experience because it is so different, and I really forgot like how different it really was. Also, without giving spoilers or anything, there's a lot that you don't know in ACOTAR. Like, there's a lot of information that comes out in the next books that when you reread ACOTAR and you dive back into like Feyre, the female main character's mind, just see how much she doesn't know, and then you see what everyone is like telling her, like kind of all the lies and like everything that people are telling her, the things she's believing, is really, really, really funny on the reread. So I really enjoyed the reread because it was just like entertaining. My rating for the book has not changed, but yeah, it was just really funny. So for my reread of ACOMAF, honestly, I love this book. It is my second favorite in the ACOTAR series. It just felt like, honestly, like going home, going back to like my best friends in the inner circle. It just felt so nice. It was nice too, honestly, because when you're first reading these books, I feel like your heart is just like you have anxiety because you need to know what happens next, and you're just like flipping the pages like you're on some sort of a rampage. And it's nice like rereading the book because now you know what's gonna happen, so you don't have that like anxiety, but you're able to like immerse yourself and just fully enjoy this world, the writing, what's going on. You catch more details. So it was just a lovely experience rereading ACOMAF. And then same with ACOWAR, the third book, which is my personal favorite in the series. It was again so nice just rereading it in more of a calm state. I did cry like 5 times rereading ACOWAR, and I'm like, why am I crying? Like, I knew everything that was gonna happen. I've gone through this before. I know what's coming. I've read this before, but for some reason it gets me in the feelings and the emotions every single time, and it made me cry 5 times on the reread, which is crazy. So yeah, I did spend May 1st to 13th just like reading and rereading and rereading these first 3 books and just studying them back to front. And if you didn't watch that vlog, that bookish week in my life, we did end up winning ACOTAR trivia. So the studying really paid off, and now I feel like I'm an expert. But then after that, I decided I wanted to read some like more summery, easygoing, lighthearted reads. So I read Swan Song by Elin Hilderbrand. I actually received an early copy of this from from the publisher, which I'm so grateful for because I love Elin Hilderbrand. And whenever summer hits, like warm weather, when like reading outdoor season starts, I love picking up an Elin Hilderbrand because her books are like the epitome of summer. All of her books take place on Nantucket during the summer season. It's like perfect for reading outdoors. This is actually, I heard, her last Nantucket book, which I'm kind of sad about because she just captures the Nantucket spirit so well because she lives on the island. You can tell she really, really loves it. So I can't even imagine Elin Hilderbrand writing about anything else in any other setting. But we'll see if she writes something else, like how it turns out and if I enjoy it. I'm definitely curious to see like what she's going to move on to next. But this one was very similar to the rest of her books, I would say. All her books are technically standalone, like you can read them as a standalone, but they all belong in this collection because there is a little bit of interconnectivity. Like you'll see a lot of recurring characters, like kind of the Nantucket locals in Ellen's world. It's more like connected for Easter eggs. It's not connected in terms of like you need that context to enjoy this book. So you can read all of her books as standalone, and I've only read 3 of her books and she has like, I feel like 20 or something like that. She has like a ridiculous amount of Nantucket books. This one follows a rich couple who moves to Nantucket. So they are newcomers and they're kind of mysterious because like no one really knows too much about them. No one really knows exactly where they got their money, but they buy this like, I think it was like $20 million, like a mansion. They move in and then they start hosting these really, really elaborate parties, like crazy theme, really like over the top budget. And they just invite like, I guess, more influential people on Nantucket to their parties. So if you're invited, it's like an honor to be included. So yeah, they host all these parties, they make new friends, they make kind of like a few enemies, and then one day they go on a yacht party because obviously they have a yacht, and while they're out on the boat, their house burns down to the ground. Completely. Everything is gone. So the police are called, and then when they return, they realize their personal assistant who was on the boat with them is missing. She fell off the boat, she jumped off the boat, she was pushed off, no one knows where she went. And so yeah, we have this mysterious fire and we have this mysterious missing person, and we have to figure out what the heck happened. So we kind of in this book jump back and forth between the different timelines, and yeah, it's a fun story. I will say that this book was not my favorite Elin Hilderbrand. It was a little bit slow moving, and I think the concept of this book was really good. It wasn't executed in a very exciting way. I think the ending was a little bit anticlimactic personally, and it was a little bit obvious. I also think like the characters in this book personally I just didn't vibe with. I got irritated with a lot of them. A lot of them were just like very annoying to me, but I would still recommend it if you're looking for a summer read. I think the vibes are there. The story in this one and the characters just didn't really do it for me. Still love Elin Hilderbrand, but yeah, this one just wasn't my favorite. I decided to stick to the summer reads theme for a little bit longer, and I read The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I've never read a billionaire romance before, and this was fun. I did enjoy this one. Again, it wasn't my favorite Christina Lauren, but I enjoyed the ride. This one had another really funny premise. So we follow a girl named Anna who at the beginning of the book is fake married to a guy named Wes. And the reason for their fake marriage is it's all for logistics. They are both students and they needed to be married for some reason to qualify for this like cheap student housing. So at the beginning of the book, they were fake married. They were kind of finishing their school. So they separated, they split ways and kind of went on with their lives. Anna just thinks she's going to be done. She's saying she's never going to see this guy again. It was just like a marriage of convenience situation. They didn't really ever know each other. Like they didn't really get past that roommate stage when they were living together. So she's like, okay, that's done. I'll never see him again. Little does she know, 3 years later, he appears at her door and has a favor to ask of her. Apparently, his family still thinks that they are married, and for whatever reason he needs her to go with him to this like super luxurious island for his sister's wedding, because she now finds out that he is actually this like billionaire, comes from this super rich family, and she had no idea. But now she's kind of forced into this situation where she needs to meet his family, spend like 10 days on this luxurious island, and pretend that they've been married for like 3 or 4 years. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. It's it's a book that I read, enjoyed, and then completely forgot about after. Like for me, it's not something that I will have in my heart forever, but it was really fun to read. Like I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. It's a really quick one. I read it in 2 days, and it's really funny because you guys know that like I've said over and over and over again that I don't like the fake dating trope, but for some reason the past 2 books I've read with the fake dating trope, Funny Story by Emily Henry and this one, Paradise Problem by Christina, I have actually thoroughly enjoyed the fake dating situations because I think they made sense. I feel like some of the previous fake dating books I've read, maybe the reason they were fake dating didn't really make sense to me, and that's why I didn't vibe with it. But Funny Story and Paradise Problem, I thoroughly enjoyed the fake dating situations in those, and I found them to be hilarious, and I'm really enjoying them. So either my tastes have changed or these are just better fake dating books. So yeah, I did enjoy this book. It was fun. I feel like the yearning and the pining was done very well, but I will say I had a few problems with it. The first is that the main female character was very annoying to me. What's with me reading annoying characters this month? The FMC was very annoying to me. She was very like not like the other girls, but like in such an extreme way. I feel like almost everything she did, like almost every decision that she made or almost everything she said was to just like prove the point that she was like not like the other girls that were on the island with her at the time. And it was getting annoying for me. The second thing I didn't really enjoy about this book was the smut. I feel like most people would enjoy this type of smut, but I don't like the gory, vulgar smut. You know what I mean? I like the smut that's a little bit more like mysterious, like more poetic. Maybe more poetic smut, but when very specific words are used and like descriptions of like certain body parts, it's not my thing, and I don't want to yuck anyone else's yum, so if you like that type of smut, you do you go girl. But yeah, it's just not entirely to my taste, so I had a few qualms with the smut style. And the third thing is that this epilogue was so long, and I am not one to like really enjoy epilogues to begin with. I usually find epilogues, especially for romances, to be very cheesy. I don't care for them. When I read a romance, I read them for the pining. I read them for the yearning. I read them for the slow burn and the tension building up. But I feel like once they get together, that's when I drop off the romance train. I'm like, okay, all done. That's fine. I don't need like a multiple page epilogue with just like cheesiness of like where they are now, like 5 years later. Like again, don't want to yuck on anyone's yum, but it's just not my thing. Like I feel like I lose interest once the buildup gets to that final stage and it's like, okay, now they're together. I feel like I'm just done. But that was the Paradise Problem. Thoroughly enjoyed it, really fun. Don't really remember, like it didn't stick with me, but it was really fun. Oh my gosh, I did read another romance. So I read Lunar Love by Lauren Kung Jessen. This premise was really, really fun for me. Like I was excited hearing about this one, but unfortunately it just didn't live up for me. So I'll tell you the premise first. We follow a girl named Olivia who is part of a family business. It's this matchmaking business that is based on the lunar calendar and horoscope. So it's like she'll match signs. She'll be like, okay, horses are matched with roosters, that type of a thing. So her family runs this matchmaking business and it's her time to take over. So her grandmother started it, her aunt took over, and then now it is Olivia's turn. She runs into this guy at a bakery at the beginning of the book and they have this very like meet cute scene. Very adorable. Then they part ways and they kind of like, you know, they start encountering each other in different places when suddenly she realizes that this guy that she's met, who's like super cute obviously, is developing like a dating app that is also based on the Chinese zodiac. So she's like, oh my gosh, this guy is ripping off my family business that is based on tradition and is just turning it into like Tinder. So she has a lot of issues with that, and then she realizes that this guy is now in direct competition with her because she's kind of struggling. A lot of people are moving more towards dating apps versus like traditional matchmaking, so he's like stealing her clients. So they come up with this competition. So she needs to use her own matchmaking system to find him a date, and he needs to use his app and his algorithm to find her a date. And whoever falls in love loses the competition. It sounds really, really fun and cute, so I was really excited to read this, but unfortunately it did fall flat for me. It was just very boring. I feel like not much happened. The entire book was just the two of them meeting up and talking about how they disagree on their dating systems. I found the banter in this book to be just kind of like standard, very classic. It didn't make me giggle. I couldn't fathom in this book how the male main character liked the female main character. Again, another kind of annoying female main character in this one. Everything she said and everything she did was just in opposition of him. So I didn't understand why he was attracted to her, because everything she said was just to fight him. And there was nothing really for me to like grasp onto and be like, oh, he likes her because of this. It seemed like other than physical attraction, there wasn't much there. I didn't understand why this guy kept gravitating towards her, because the entire book it just seemed like she was trying to fight him and argue with him, and he was just accepting her for who she was. It was just so unbalanced that I didn't get it. And then it, like in a lot of romances too, I feel like I enjoy the side plots a lot, like what happens on the side, because there's only so much you can do in terms of a romance plot. Like you get the two characters, they talk to each other, they figure out their issues with each other, and the story's done, right? And so I love romances that have a lot of side plot going on. There just wasn't really any of that in this book. So it was boring for me, unfortunately, and I really wanted to love this one, but I just didn't. Oh, the one thing I did love about this book though was the emphasis on the food. So obviously this book is very Chinese, and like me as a little Chinese girly, I loved it. Like I loved reading about all the Chinese themes. I loved reading about the Chinese family and like the culture and tradition that had been passed on through the generations. And there was a huge emphasis on food, which I love. So it's one of those books that when you're reading, you're like, I'm getting so hungry. I just wanted dumplings while I was reading this entire book, because dumplings were constantly being mentioned. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and I think the Chinese culture was tied in very well with the entire story. Just the story was not very fun. Okay, after reading those three kind of more summary romance reads, I decided to dive back into fantasy because I wanted something a little bit more hard-hitting. Mood reader over here. So I decided to finish the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. So I read the Well of Ascension, which is the second book. If you don't know what the Mistborn trilogy is, it is a high fantasy. We are set in a world that is kind of like apocalyptic a little bit. Like it's kind of nearing the end of the world, it seems. The sun is like very low in the sky. It's not burning bright anymore. It's like red, and our world is covered in ash and like mist. So it really feels very end of the world-esque. We have a magic system that's based on metals. So there's actually 3 different ways to like wield the metal, I guess. They're all metal-based magic systems where different metals will give you a different purpose. And I'm not going to say anything more about them because I feel like as you go through the book, you learn more about them like in a very strategic way. So I don't want to spoil anything. In the first book, we have this group of thieves and criminals, like lower life people that get together, kind of Six of Crows style, like a very miscellaneous type of a crew, but they're kind of all friends. They're very quirky characters, and they get together because they want to overthrow the Lord Ruler, who is like kind of the big bad ruler at the time. So yeah, that's our world. That's the premise of the first book. And then we just, you know, as all epic fantasy series do, we just kind of build off of that through the next books. So I did enjoy Mistborn, but I will say I didn't really like the Well of Ascension. Looking back on it, I really sadly didn't enjoy the experience. It was another one I was really sad about because this series, again, it's been built up for me so much, and I feel like a lot of people really love this series, so I expected like great things. And I feel like while this book was good, it was okay, there was just things about the writing style that kept taking me out of the story and pulling me out of the immersiveness of it. At the beginning of this book, we kind of get this scene, like an action scene that was written very cleverly in terms of re-explaining the magic system, which I really liked because I read Mistborn a couple months ago, and by now I remember like generally what the magic system was, but in terms of the details, they've left my mind at this point, you know? So I was really happy to see that action system at the front of the book that re-explained everything. Like, this metal does this metal does this. And I was really grateful for it because it gave me like a crash course on like the Mistborn world. But as I kept reading, I realized every action sequence was doing the same thing. So like even 80% into the Well of Ascension, there was an action sequence and it was written the same way, where it's like our character used a certain metal, but then it took like 1 or 2 sentences to like explain why that metal did what it did. And I was like, okay, but at this point we're 80% into this book. Why are we re-explaining the magic system again? And it's not like it was new information being explained. It was like the same information. I feel like that part of the writing made this book feel like it was younger than it was. So this is an adult fantasy, and it's definitely adult because of the things that happen. Like there's a lot of horrific things that happen that are more mature and for adults. Like it's clearly not YA or middle grade or anything. It's for sure an adult series, but the way things kept getting over explained, it made the writing feel like YA or middle grade or like younger. I felt like I was being treated like a dummy, like, oh, like this girl definitely doesn't know how this magic works. 600 pages into this book, so I'm gonna re-explain it again. And it wasn't for me. It also made the book a lot longer than it should have been. So while a lot of things were happening and while the story is technically a fast-paced story, it felt really slow because of all these extra sentences re-explaining things to you over and over again. It made the book boring for me, which is sad because I did like the story. If I just take the writing out of it and just like look at the components of the story as a whole and what happened, it was great. I loved it. I just didn't like the writing style. So that was the Well of Ascension. And I finished off this month reading The Hero of Ages, which is the third and final book in this trilogy. And I will say, I am so happy to say that the writing was much better in this one. The over-explaining was not there. It just felt a lot better. So I'm really happy about that. It was just maybe the Well of Ascension had like second book syndrome. This book was really fun to read because in this finale, you see everything coming together. That's one of my favorite things about fantasies is when like you have like so many books of this buildup and then in the final book everything comes together and everything makes sense. Also, we get a lot more explanation of the different magic systems in this book and like how they came to be. The story was overall very satisfying. Like it scratched my itch in terms of things I wanted explained. I hate to say this, but while I enjoyed this book, for some reason I didn't connect to this world and to this characters as much as I did to like some previous fantasy series that I've read that are like my Roman Empire series. There were moments in The Hero of Ages where I feel like it was written in a way where I feel like my reaction should have been like, like I should have been devastated and broken and so emotional about things that were happening. And while I was reading it, I was kind of just like, oh no, or like it's just smaller reactions. And I feel like the climax or like the final moments, like they weren't so hard hitting for me. It could be due to a multitude of reasons. Like it could just be I wasn't in the mood, could have been the pacing of the story, it could have been the characters' names. Like sometimes I honestly don't vibe with characters just because I feel like their names don't fit them. Or it could have been the writing style, like as I mentioned in the Well of Ascension. Yeah, I don't know, kind of mixed feelings. I feel like I need to sit on my thoughts about this trilogy a little bit more. Maybe it's just me. It's me, I'm the problem, it's me. And I hope I don't make anyone mad with my thoughts on Mistborn because I don't know, I'm just so conflicted about it. I'm kind of at this point like a little bit tired of Brandon Sanderson, not of him personally, of his books. But if there is another series of his that you think I would like, based on what you know about the books I like, let me know what you think I would like in terms of his books, because I feel like I do want to give him another chance because like he's so highly talked about that I want to see the hype. So if there's anything in his Cosmere that you think I specifically would like, please let me know, and I do want to give him a try. But yeah, that is my reading wrap up for this month. Those were the 8 books I read. I hope you enjoyed this wrap-up video. If you did, please leave me a like and a comment. If you don't know what to comment down below, let me know what your favorite book of May was. If you like me, subscribe, do that bell thing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!